Supreme Magus, web novel, Chapter 403, Belius Part 1. Yes, I'm free tonight, but your invitation is a bit sudden. I usually don't date people I met only once. We barely know each other, Camila said with a pensive tone. She liked that kind of role play. She hasn't said no and she called it a date. Camila isn't considering my offer as a simple colleague get-together. So far so good. Despite having his dating experience from 2 lives, Lith felt awkward every time he asked a woman out. His paranoid nature made him overthink over the smallest details, and being a control freak didn't help. He considered making the first move like exposing a weakness, and he hated feeling weak. Since all the complaining in the world wouldn't change the rules of the game, Lith knew he could only bet or fold. If he played, he could lose, but if he didn't, his victory chances would always be 0. I didn't tell you before because I didn't want to make you worry, but I'm a ranger. It's a very dangerous job. Sometimes I risk my life multiple times a day. I don't know when or if I'll be granted another leave, so think carefully before making your decision. He said in an overly dramatic tone, making it sound like he was part of a suicide squad. If you put it this way, I can't refuse. She giggled while looking again at his personal file. Lith is a bit young, but sure, he went through a lot. The plague, Balcor, the assassination attempts, the White Griffin massacre, and now the recent events in the north. Lith's life seemed to be an anthology of short horror stories. He sounds definitely wise beyond his age. Still, it's a bit of gamble. Let's hope I won't need a timely headache. Have you already thought about the place? I have never been to Belius. Lith shook his head. I'll let you decide the time and the place. Let me know if you need a ride. I can warp us anywhere. Thanks, but I'm good. Let's meet at Valorian, at 7 o'clock. Lieutenant Yehaval, I need those documents and I need them yesterday. A voice interrupted her. Sorry, I got to go. An idiot intern of mine turned a simple recon mission into a hero stunt, and it's up to me fill the paperwork. If I don't fix this mess, I'll get stuck overtime. See you later. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Lith second-guessing himself. I guess I'm that idiot. He sighed. Lots of people now have lots of questions about how I solved a centuries-old problem. I need to play this smart. The silver lining is that there is no witness, so no matter what bullshit I make up, they have to take it at face value. Lith flew in a straight line toward Belius while revising with solace his own report. They looked for inconsistencies and found none. After that, they ran several simulations of his upcoming interrogation to find the answers most suitable to avoid follow-up questions. They were so focused on discussing how to belittle Lith's endeavor as much as possible that they realized they had reached Belius only when they saw the maelstrom array surrounding the city. Luckily, because of his unfamiliarity with the Keller region, Lith was just a dozen meters above the ground to use road signs and milestones. He had all the time to stop and get down to the ground before his flight spell was disrupted. After another round of glares and insults for skipping the 100 meters long line to get inside the city, Lith walked through the warp gate that led to the army headquarters. Much to his surprise, instead of being searched and questioned like during his first visit, the customs officer gave him a salute. It's an honor to meet you, sir. Please, allow me to take you to your apartments. My what? I expected to sleep in the barracks or at Camila's place. What's going on here? The officer was a man in his late 30s that didn't stop talking for a second about how safer the citizens felt now that the closest lost city was lost for good. I can't wait to read the whole story on the Army's Interlink. The officer said, referring to the database available to the public. They walked outside the main building, giving Lith the opportunity to see Belius. The fortified city was different from all the other places he had visited. Because of the lack of running water or elevators, houses were usually 2 or 3 stories high tops. Belius consisted of tall buildings, instead, some even 10 stories high and all made of the same gray stone blocks. At least one building in each residential area was occupied only by restaurants and shops. The roads were paved and wide enough to let 3 carriages pass side by side. The sidewalks were filled with people of all social classes, each minding their own business. If not for the lack of smog and pollution, Lith would have thought of being in an Earth's metropolis. Noticing his surprise, the officer quickly explained. Belius was built as a military outpost to keep in check the Gorgon Empire's borders. Over time, the city expanded vertically rather than horizontally to be more easily defendable. There's only so much space inside the walls, and it's not like we can take them down and rebuild the arrays from scratch. All these buildings once belonged to the army, that's why their design lacks originality. To distinguish a rich house from a poor one, you have to look for 2 details. The number of floors and gardens. Because of the lack of space, green is a luxury and so are mansions. A 2 stories high building is bound to be a noble house. Commoners live in condos. Why there is no traffic? Lith asked after noticing that aside from military and noble stagecoaches the roads were empty. Because in case of emergencies we can't afford traffic jams. Unless someone is very important or filthy rich, they have to move around Belius with this. The officer pointed at 2 small warp gates standing next to each other. One to get in, one to get out. He neared his badge to a small gemstone standing next to the gate, making a small 3D holographic interface appear. It was a drop-down menu filled with addresses and road names. Some were grayed out. For security reasons, you can't operate it without an ID. Use your badge and follow me. The officer selected a place called Royal Road before disappearing through the gate which closed right behind him. Lith did as instructed, noticing he could go almost anywhere. Very few locations were not available. Royal Road turned out to be a block made only by mansions, each with high walls and a private garden. What happens if two people step inside a gate at once? Lith asked. They end up in jail. The system is unforgiving. Here we are to destination. The officer pointed at a 2 stories high manor surrounded by trees and flower beds. The external gate opened as soon as the officer swept his badge in front of a magical gemstone nestled on a nearby pillar. There was a folded note attached to the door. Dear Lith Verhen, consider this a token of appreciation for your valiant efforts. I hope to meet you soon. It was signed by Royal Constable Tyrus Griffin.